Okay, so right now I'd like to talk about part configurations. And the idea behind this is we have a base part or a base design that might have several different flavors, but it's really fundamentally the same thing. And instead of making a whole bunch of sets of different parts, part files out there, we could use what's called a configuration to control what is fundamentally the same, but maybe with minor tweaks, all within one part file. So I'm going to show you kind of a real basic example of how this works, and hopefully it'll get you up to speed. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new part, and let's just model a block. Nothing special, just a simple block. And let's pretend that our block is going to be our base part, and we're selling these blocks that have what we're going to call different configurations. So let's go ahead and make our block. I'm going to go ahead and add a dimension. Maybe make it that 1 inch here. Let's control these sides so that they're always equal to, I'm holding the control key down and I'm making all of these equal sides. And then we're going to go ahead and drive that box out as a extrude, and we'll just go 1 inch. So like it's like a cube, if you will. Okay, so let's say we want to sell a cube that one of them has a certain hole pattern where we have 2 holes on top, one of them has 1 hole on top, another one maybe has a boss, but it's all fundamentally a block, but it just has different what we're going to call configurations or minor tweaks. And again, instead of making a whole bunch of part files that represent this, we're just going to roll this all into this one part file and make this into configurations. So let's add a couple features to kind of differentiate this this part. So we'll go ahead and we'll put a hole in, and I'm not doing anything precise here, just something to differentiate all this. So here's like a hole, and maybe we make a extrude on top. So again, maybe this is one configuration we're selling. It's a block with a hole in it. And maybe another configuration we sell has a boss on it. Pull my sketch up here. So put another, and we'll run that boss maybe a 1/4 inch up. But we're buying we want to sell just the block with the boss and not with the hole, and vice versa. So I could actually suppress using my suppress function, right click suppress to hide that hole and say, okay, let's sell this. Or I could suppress and say, hey, do you want just an empty block, a blank that you could use to build your own configuration? Or you could sell a configuration that's got a hole and a boss. So we want to control this, the configuration. So we actually have a, so I'm going to suppress these guys. We have in our feature manager, what's called a configuration manager. It's the 3rd tab over. And all along, you've been working with what's called the default configuration. And the default configuration is basically what you see is what you get is there. And however I change this, so if I say unsuppress this cut, and I go back to my default configuration, that's what's going to be presented. Well, we need to add multiple configurations because there's going to be multiple tweaks to this base part. So we're going to add a configuration. So I right click, add configuration. And let's call it something meaningful. So block with hole. So this is a block with a hole. We call it whatever we want. Maybe that's the description. And we could also, as we get into making drawings, this could be a configuration that we could deploy in our bill of material and have that controlled in our drawings. And we're using the suppress feature function. and I hit OK, and now I have a block with a hole. If I go back to my default, notice nothing's changed. But let's make our default a block with nothing, just a raw block. So I'm going to do that by suppressing the hole, going back, and this is going to be what we're using for a default. If I double click on the new configuration, block with hole, you can see as I double click back and forth between block with hole and default that we have a cut or a cylinder there. And that's going to be my block with hole. So maybe we go back to our default, and I right click, and we're going to add yet another configuration, and we're going to call that block with boss. Oops, boss. Maybe we'll make that the description as well, and I'm going to hit OK. So at this point, notice that block with boss is active. It is my active configuration. And with that, any changes I make out on the feature tree, so unsuppressing these features, and I believe we called this block with boss. So we don't want the hole, we just want the block with the boss, and that is now set as my configuration. So if I double click on block with hole and activate that one, any work I do will then be locked into that configuration. So if I go block with hole and double click, sorry, I was editing there we go. We got block with hole. If I double click my block with boss, there now I have the boss. And if I double click my default, we're back to kind of where my base is. So I could go along and do some more designing and say, okay, maybe I want a whole pattern, maybe a new configuration. So I'll just add a configuration, and we'll call this base with 4 holes. Okay. So now we actually have to do the work to make that a base with 4 holes. So I could unsuppress the cut, and there's my base with 4 holes is active. So let's truly make it a base with 4 holes, and we'll do some linear patterning here. Do my sketch, do a linear pattern. Linear pattern is looking for a direction. I could actually use the edge as a direction. We only want 2, and maybe just we'll do some more spacing. I can do a direction 2 in that linear pattern by selecting the other edge, and we can go maybe a 1/4 inch spacing, and we want to have 2 of those. Maybe we'll make it more like just kind of space it out here. And I'm going to hit OK, and now I have this pattern, once it refreshes, a base with 4 holes. Back if I go with block with boss, there's my block with boss, my block with hole, my default, and my base with 4 holes is there. So the workflow here is you kind of got to think, oh, okay, I want this certain configuration. Make a new configuration, call it something that makes sense what you want, and start suppressing, adding features, whatever it takes to make that configuration, and it'll automatically, as you have that configuration active that you're working on, it's going to save and persist all of those functions that all of those features that you've either added or suppressed. So if I wanted to edit this block with boss and change it, maybe I want to add a fillet around the base, and okay, that's kind of big, but you get the point. Block with boss is now going to persist or save that. If I go back to base with 4 holes, it's still that original one. My default is still there. Sorry, double click on the actual, there we go. Block with hole, with 1 hole, block with 1 boss, and block with 4 holes. And those are all my configurations. And really it's just a matter of, as I'm rolling my configuration forward, so let's go back to like default. It's, oops, sorry about that. It's basically persisting or remembering what I had suppressed. So that's the idea of configurations. Hopefully this helps, and thanks for watching.